Welcome to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. Today, we're going to be talking with Kari Saddler, founder of Daily Leadership Coaching. You'll learn more throughout the discussion at that site, dailyleadershipcoaching.com. And Kari has been working with people to develop their leadership skills throughout her career, and she's also about to bring online a new app to help you with your leadership, and we'll be talking about that on the program today. So Kari, welcome to the program today.
Thank you, Jamie. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. So first off, tell us about your background as a leadership consultant and coach.
Great. So I started out in leadership development almost 17 years ago. I know, when I was 10, right? So originally I was training people on professional development and quickly moved from professional development into leadership development. And I really found that that was sort of my passion. I don't think that anyone should have a bad boss. And you know, the thing about bad bosses, have you ever seen the movie The Sixth Sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I always laugh and say I had this experience early on where as I was moving into leadership development and I'm trying to help leaders become better leaders, and I had a wonderful boss at the time. His name was Dan Rust. Love Dan. And Dan and I are having a conversation one day, and I'm talking to him about the problem with leaders, that so many of them are not great leaders and they don't know it. And I sort of had this sixth sense moment where I'm like, Dan, I see bad leaders. They're everywhere. And he laughed just like you did, and he says to me, but they don't know they're bad leaders. And so, you know, this is one of the first questions that people have to ask is, well, how do I know if I'm a good leader? And the thing I can tell you hands down about good leaders is that all good leaders are actively working to become better leaders on a regular basis. And so what that means is they are going to conferences, they're going to classes, maybe they've hired a coach, but they're regularly taking part in activities to become a better leader. So if you're a leader and you're doing those things, at least I can tell you you're going to become a better leader.
So is leadership something that is innate and can be developed, or is it something that can be not even with somebody and taught?
You know, that's a great question, Jamie, because the answer is both. I actually wrote an article on LinkedIn last year about the idea, you know, what are the fixed leadership qualities and then what are the ones that you can really change? Because there are certain things about you as a leader that are probably going to always be the same. So for example, for me, I am somebody who tends to be very direct and I'm very timely. And so that means if you ask me, can you get this done as soon as possible? I'm going to turn around and be like, yes, Jamie, I will get it done now. And that is, you're not going to change that. I'm always going to have that. And there might be a different type of leader. So I worked with leaders who, for them, when you say as soon as possible, what that means is when they have enough time to do the entire project in a way that they know it's going to be perfect. And so that's a very different type of ASAP. You're not going to change somebody's urgency. That's a level of urgency. You're not going to change that about somebody. But what you can change, so for somebody like me who's more of a director, I also tend to be more blunt. And when I speak to people, I speak quickly, to the point, no candy coating. But I've taught myself that in relationships, when I'm talking with other people, it can be incredibly beneficial to slow myself down, to really focus and listen to what they're saying and give them an opportunity to tell me their point of view. Because I tend to be so assertive and articulate, unless I give someone that opportunity to share their point of view, most people are going to hear me talk and then just stop talking.
So when you begin to work with somebody, they come to you because, why do they come to you usually? Because they feel they are a leader that needs to be developed, or because they feel they don't have leadership skills at all?
That's another good question. So most people who come to me, they know they're good leaders, right? So they have probably been leading somewhere between 1 to 5 years. That tends to be sort of my sweet spot as somebody who is a manager or director. 1 to 5 years, they've got between 10 and 100 direct reports. And while they're getting things done and they're getting some success, something is missing. And depending on what their skills are, what their strengths are, what's missing could be a variety of different things. So the first thing I do when I'm working with a new leader is do a couple of assessments to determine what's their communication style, what's their level of emotional intelligence, and then we sort of create a plan to identify those gaps and to help them start working specifically on creating habits in their leadership daily practice that will allow them to fill those gaps.
You know, I think a lot of people want to become leaders just to have that title, but they don't want to act as a leader. And, you know, I've kind of learned a lot about myself over the last few years, in that I like to feel like a leader, but I don't really feel like I am a number one type of person in an organization. I'm a good number 2, number 3 person, and I openly admit that, because I lack some of those leadership skills, and I've seen it in myself. And I put a lot of it on my own independence. I kind of like want to be left alone a lot of times. There's times when I'm like moody and I'm disconnected. Can a leader be like that and still be successful? I guess it comes down to delegating, I guess, better.
It is. It does. It comes down to delegating. And this is something I talk to a lot of leaders about, because a lot of leaders, what gets you promoted to a leadership level is typically going to be that you were a very successful individual contributor. So you got things done, you made great progress, you got things done well. So you get promoted to a manager level. As a manager, your job is no longer to get things done. As a manager, your job is now to develop other people who will get those things done.
And I think that's a problem in just work in general, because you got that person who's a hard worker and you want to reward them. And so oftentimes you reward them with some type of leadership position. They're like, they don't, and they want that, but then they get in there and they don't really know how to lead people.
Right. Well, and if they haven't, if they were somebody who just, you gave them work and they got it done because that was their personality, sometimes it's hard for them to look at a group of employees who don't all have that same drive, that same assertiveness and they're not all self-starters, and think about, how do I get this group of people motivated? One of the most important things from a leadership perspective to understand is it is always faster and easier to get it done yourself. If I've got a job in front of me right now and I've got 10 people who don't know how to do the job, I could just do the job and be done with it. But if I have to do that job every single day, if I train 2 or 3 people on my team to get that job done every day, ultimately I'm saving myself time in the long run.
That's where I struggle too, because when I'm leading people and I know something needs to get done and I don't want to wait on somebody else, I just do it. And so I find myself doing other people's jobs. And that's just, I'm a natural worker. I'm really not a natural leader. I'm a natural worker, but I have leadership aspects, or attributes, I should say.
Right. Well, and so this is part of why I created, what we're talking about right now is the reason why I'm creating the app Daily Leadership Coaching, because leadership is a daily practice. And if you think about leadership once a month or once a year, or, if you occasionally sit back and think, I really prefer working versus leading, chances are you're not going to become a better leader. But if you want to lead, if you recognize, I have some of the skills needed for leadership, but my whole leadership practice, being able to delegate, being able to listen to people and build those relationships to really inspire people to get things done. Ultimately, that's what is at the core of leadership. It is the ability to inspire others to accomplish great things. If you want to become a leader who's capable of doing that, it requires a daily practice.
And this daily practice is going to be put into place with this app that you're talking about.
Correct.
So explain this app a little bit more. I've not seen a leadership app yet.
No, and that's the thing, is that there is no leadership app yet. What is out there, the model that I'm following for people who are curious, is the weight loss industry. So the weight loss industry has mastered the concept that if you don't think about it every single day, you're not going to change your weight. And so every company out there who does any type of weight loss or weight loss coaching has an app where you can track certain things every day. You've got certain milestones that you're hitting, you get a scorecard, and that's really the model that I followed with Daily Leadership Coaching. It's going to be a free app that will allow you, so every day that you log into the app, you're going to get a 2 to 3 minute lesson on leadership. This is really just you setting a daily intention of, I'm going to think about this thing today. And there might be days when the lesson is like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And there might be other days when you hear the lesson, you're like, I think this is something I've mastered. But either way, the continuity of every day thinking about one part of your leadership practice is going to help you make steps towards getting better. But really where the secret comes in is you're going to have a challenge every day. And the challenge is designed to either get you to think differently or to behave differently. And you have an option every day. It will ask you, do you want to take a challenge? And if you say yes, it'll tell you what the challenge is. And so you take the challenge. And then you're going to rate yourself on your leadership behaviors today. Now, Jamie, if you had a day like you were talking about today, where you were sort of moody, you stayed in your office because you had a lot of work to get done and you just got it done, if you're honest as a leader, you're probably going to have to rate yourself lower on some of those behaviors on those days. But the days when you felt caught up, you were feeling, very interacted with people and walked out, built relationships, were that inspirational leader, you're probably going to score yourself higher. So you gather all this information on a daily and weekly basis, and every week you'll get a scorecard that says, here's your leadership score for this week. Your goal each week is just to improve a little bit over the previous week.
Now, is the app tied to your business? Is it something people can download, free and no connections? How does it work in that capacity?
So the app is actually not live until September 1st is our launch date. But it is an app literally that I created, and I laugh and tell people I quit my full-time job with benefits to spend a bunch of money that I don't have to build an app I plan to give away for free. And people laugh and say, that's not a very, how are you going to make money? Everyone's so worried about how I'm going to make money, which I think is funny because there will be premium services on the app that you could purchase if you wanted to upgrade to have additional, training or addition. So there will be e-learnings available and webinars available. And then there will be a percentage of people who also go through the app recognize some of the gaps that they need to fill, and they want to move more quickly towards filling those gaps. And the easiest way to do that, in addition to the app, is actually working with a live coach. So you'll have the ability through the app to hire a live coach. They will all be certified professional coaches who have an ICF certification, so they've gone through a training program. You know you're getting good quality coaching. The additional huge benefit is, let's say you've been using the app for 2 or 3 months. You've just had the free version, but for 2 or 3 months it's been gathering all this data that you've been sharing. And now you decide, you know what, I really want that promotion. I'm ready to work with a coach. When you hire a coach through Daily Leadership Coaching, they're going to have access to all of that data that you've been collecting for the last 2 months. And so your coach is going to be able to tell you, you know, looking at the history of you using this app, the first 10 days of the month, you're always right on. You come in every day, you do the challenge, you're scoring yourself high. But by the time you get to the 15th, suddenly things change, and the rest of the month, everything slides downhill. Having that sort of data about a client that you're coaching will allow your coach to help you identify what is it that changes mid-month. And so maybe, you know, that's when certain reports come out, or maybe that's when a new employee started. They'll be able to do a lot more of the root cause analysis of identifying what's causing the issues you're having as a leader.
Is the app going to be available both on the Apple and the Android devices?
Yep, it'll be a hybrid app that's available both on Android and Apple devices. It'll also have a web application, so you'll be able to access your app from any device.
All right, we'll talk a little bit more about this when we come back from the break. Currently talking to Kari Saddler, founder of Daily Leadership Coaching, and learn more at dailyleadershipcoaching.com. You're listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.
Hi, welcome to Yeager's. We just want to take a minute and show you what we're all about. At Yeager's, our primary business is hardwood flooring, although we are remodelers for kitchen, bath, and general construction. We operate a fleet of shop-at-home vans that have all the flooring-type products, hardwood flooring, laminate flooring, tiles, stone, what have you. So we're able to come out first with products in our vehicles and take a look at the setting, how the colors will work, and then to be able to come up with some options and ideas for you. If that's not good enough, we have a large distribution center that we inventory product and have a nice display area.
Back to That Business Show 2.0 with Jamie Maloney, where new episodes air each weekday morning at 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. Also made available on Facebook via Facebook Live each and every morning if you head over to facebook.com/That Business Show. Today we're talking with Kari Saddler, founder of Daily Leadership Coaching. Learn more at that website, dailyleadershipcoaching.com. So Kari, let's talk about some examples of people that you've worked with. Can you give me some examples? Do you get a lot of people that come to you and say, you know, I don't, this is my problem, so I don't really think you can help me, but, you know, in the end, you really did help them. Share some examples if you could.
You know, most leaders who come to me, it's not that they think that I can't help them, but I think a lot of leaders come to the coaching conversation saying, I don't want to change my personality. You know, I worked for a long time inside an organization as a coach, and so I got two different types of clients. I got the clients who recognized in themselves, wow, there's something I need to work on, and then I got the clients whose boss said, you need to go talk to Kari. So those were two very different audiences that I was working with. But for those who recognize that there's something about themselves, you know, they want to be a better leader. You know, take for example, one of the biggest skills that I work with leaders on is listening. We learn how to read, write, do math, science. I think a lot of people go through calculus in high school, but very few people ever take a class on how to listen effectively. And I could put up a whiteboard behind me right now and ask, you know, 100 leaders, what are the active listening skills? And they could rattle them off, like everybody knows. Active listening means that I don't talk, or I say, I'm making eye contact, smiling, body language. Like everybody knows the active listening skills, But just because you know all those skills doesn't mean that you're any good at them. And so this is one of the biggest things that I've worked with a lot of leaders on, is just developing that active listening skill over time. And it really will completely change your relationships when you start truly listening to people. One of the things that makes it the hardest, I think, for leaders to listen to people is exactly what we were talking about early, Jamie. Leaders are trying to get things done. So if I've got this project I need done, and I could have done it myself, but now I'm like, I'm going to take the time, I'm going to teach Jamie how to do it, and Jamie comes in the room, and now Jamie wants to talk. And in my mind as the leader, my goal was, I want this project done, and I'm going to take time out of my busy day to teach Jamie, but now here's Jamie, he's got something else entirely he wants to talk about. As a leader in that moment, if you don't take the time to actively listen, if you just say, Jamie, listen, we got to get this project done, once in a while you can get away with that, but if that's every interaction that you have with an employee, you're not going to inspire them to lead because they don't feel like you care about them.
I'm fortunate that I've always been a good natural listener. If you listen to enough of my programs, you'll actually hear the guest more than the host, which is kind of rare because most radio show hosts are, or podcast hosts are, very boisterous. They want to talk over their guests and everything. It's a common complaint on a lot of programs that, we didn't want to hear the host. We wanted to hear the guest. I wish that guy would shut up. So I'm fortunate in that sense that I naturally like to listen because I'm honestly trying to learn from each one of my guests. So I do have that in my back pocket as something natural, but I can always learn and develop it more and more. So do you find it difficult to try to lead leaders, though?
So leaders want to be led. Again, if we go back to what I talked about in terms of the definition of leadership, it is to inspire people to greatness. And so if my goal as a leader is that I want to inspire others to greatness, when I'm working with somebody who's trying to inspire me to be better, that's something that's going to empower me. It's going to make me feel good. I always laugh. There's one leader that I was working with who lovingly tells a story about the day that I spent almost 2 hours having a conversation with her about the difference between I understand and it is understandable. And the reason this was and this comes up in active listening because she's talking to an employee who's got a problem. And in the leader's mind, this is not a problem. Like, this is a first world made up dilemma in your head and not like an actual real, let's stop everything problem. And she keeps saying, I understand, but she's saying it dismissively because she doesn't understand and she's just trying to move the conversation forward. So that's not actively listening. What I taught her was to use the phrase, it is understandable. It's really a validation. Mm-hmm. So when the truth is I don't understand, I'm looking at you thinking, I don't know why you have this problem. If I say to you, I understand, the first thing that other person is going to think is, no, you don't. You're not living my life. You did not go through this. You're not having this experience. But when you say to somebody, you know what? It's totally understandable based on your perception of this situation that this would make you angry. Anybody who was in your situation would be really angry right now. It's saying something very different to a person. And it's not a lie, because if you had lived their life, if you had had all of their experiences, you would feel the way that they feel.
I like that. So it is understandable versus I understand, and I can definitely see the difference in those two words right there. Can you share another one like that? I mean, I'll put you on the spot right there, but that's such a great example of how to really connect with somebody versus using traditional means.
Sure. So another thing that comes up a lot when I'm talking to leaders is giving feedback, because we all know that when you're inspiring people to get better, occasionally you've got to point out something that they did that wasn't better, or something mistake that they made, and you can't shy away from that as a leader. You've got to be able to give somebody feedback, but at the same time, if you don't do it in the right way, you can really damage relationships. And so what I found with a lot of leaders is there's sort of two different routes that people take in terms of giving feedback. So maybe I'm going to be really vague and say something like, Kari, your communication could really use some work. And when anybody hears your communication could use some work, they have no idea what you're talking about. Like, they're thinking, do I need to do grammar check on my email? Should I talk faster, slower? They don't know what you mean. So that's one school, is like the totally vague, here's this nebulous thing out here you need to work on. And then there's the other school of people who will come to an employee and say, very specifically, I've identified 6 times in the last week when you had a typo in an email. So they'll come with like a body of evidence to support a claim that your communication needs work. And neither one of those tends to be an approach that's going to inspire someone to do better. And so a lot of the clients that I've worked with, we've worked through this process of really finding the sweet spot for giving feedback. Most people know that if you're going to give feedback, the sooner the better. So for example, if I see something really important come across my email from an employee and it needs to be addressed, for example, because there's misinformation, the sooner that I come and talk to them about it, the better. And when I go talk to them about it, I really need to just be specific about this one thing. So you don't want to be, you don't want to come to them and say, I just saw this in my email and you do this all the time, because that goes back to that whole generalizing, and anytime you use always, you're going to shut down relationships.
Now you say a lot of leaders come to you and you got to help them learn the skill of listening. What attributes do the leaders come to you and they all seem to possess that you got to work on with them? Is it the type A dominant personality? Is it the I'm in control or I'm always right? Or what's that one attribute that all leaders have that you need to help kind of scale back?
I think there's a misconception that all leaders have this I'm an A driving, there are a lot of very dominant leaders who have that A-type personality, who they have to be in the lead and you have to sort of help them listen better and soften. But that isn't all leaders. In fact, if you look at almost any of the type theories like MBTI or DISC or any of those, what they'll tell you is that any type of personality can be a leader. They're going to lead differently. You tend to think of those dominant A-player leaders because they're the ones who are the loudest and they're out there like, here I am, I'm the leader. And there are lots of situations where that's not the best leader. There are a lot of situations where having a leader who is willing to be sort of more of the, I'm here to generate support for people. I'm here to maintain a team that's doing really well, and I'm going to do so quietly and behind the scenes. There are a lot of situations where that can be a powerful leader.
I talked with a guest this past week, a friend of mine, been on the program a couple times, Rocky Romanella. He wrote a book called Tighten the Lug Nuts, The Principles of Balanced Leadership. And he made the point during the discussion that everybody is a leader. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to think of leadership just in the sense of business. Do you work with people in leadership in other areas, like leading a family, for instance, just a mother leading her children? How does that come into play?
I love it that you asked that, and we didn't talk about this before the show, Jamie, but I completely agree. You are a leader everywhere in your life, whether you actually have the title of manager or director. The app that's being launched on September 1st, Daily Leadership Coaching, is an app specifically for people who are looking to lead as a manager or director. We will then, sometime late September, early October, be launching a Kickstarter campaign to fund phase 2 of the app. And during phase 2, we're actually going to expand it to have lead your family, lead your life, lead your relationship, because you are a leader in all of those places. And in all of those places, again, you have a leadership practice. There are certain behaviors that you do every day that impact all of those areas of your life. And if you want to change any of those behaviors, people always talk about it takes 21 days to form a habit. Have you heard this, Jamie?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you, have you ever made like a really positive, healthy change in your life and you committed to it for 21 days and for 21 days solid, you made that happen?
When I was younger, I did, but not so much lately.
So did you ever do that then for the rest of your life because you did it for 21 days?
No.
Right. And so this is the thing. We have this urban myth that says, if I can commit to something for 21 days, it's going to change my behavior forever. And it's totally not true. The way that you developed a habit is because that's how you behaved every single day for a long period of time. And the way that you're going to change a habit as a leader in your marriage, as a parent, anywhere in your life is the exact same way, by small habits that you use every single day in your life.
So who today is your ideal client to work with? Is it any type of leader, or just give us your niche client that you work with?
So for me specifically, who I tend to work with are people who have a title of manager or director. They've been in their role for 1 to 5 years. Occasionally I'll work with folks who have been in their role less than that, but what I find is that for a new leader, those first 6 to 12 months, the learning curve is so steep, you're just in survival mode. That's not my specialty. I think that's a specialty that is very important. What you need in the first 12 months as a leader is very different than what you need in year 1 to 5. Most of the people who I work with have between 10 and 100 direct reports, so they're in that manager-director category. But as I said, the app is actually designed and will be ultimately designed for people who are leading in any area of their
And the
life.
app launching September 1st. It'll be available on the iOS and the Android operating system. And will they be able to get it at dailyleadershipcoaching.com as well?
Yes, they will.
All right, so be on the lookout for that as well. So from the first leadership apps I've ever heard about, and she explains how it's going to be a kind of a daily tutorial to kind of inspire you and get you to do stuff, right? Give us the rundown again real quick of what it does.
So Daily Leadership Coaching is an app that is designed to help you build a daily leadership practice, because we all know that nothing happens by talking about it once a week.
All right. Good discussion. Kari Saddler, founder of Daily Leadership Coaching. Learn more at dailyleadershipcoaching.com. So, Kari, thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it.
And also catch new episodes each weekday morning at 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com. And if you'd like to come onto the program and share your business or your story, go to tbsinterview.com for more information. Also, please connect with us all across social media, facebook.com/thatbusinessshow. Also there, we air new episodes via Facebook Live each and every morning, in addition to thatbusinessnetwork.com. So you've been listening to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.